friends, and welcome back to Doodles and Drawings. In this episode, we're going to follow up and we're going to learn to do all the lowercase bubble letters so we have all of our letters available to us in our drawings. And so just like last time, we're going to sketch all of the lowercase letters. Then we're going to do the lining for all of them, and then we'll pick one to color in. And I've got the same colors pulled out as last time. We'll have some consistency. So here are our colors we're going to use later on when we color in a couple of our letters. So let's get started. We're going to start, of course, with A, B, and C, right? We're going to go straight through the alphabet just like last time. So let's get going. Now for the lowercase letters, they're a little bit more difficult, I find, because they have more defined shapes. So A has that little tail. So we want to make sure we have that tail in there. So there's our A. For B, we've got the long line here. And then there's kind of like a little lip here where the B comes. So I always draw that in because I want to be as accurate as possible. But you don't have to. You could make that just one line here and that would work just fine. C is just like the big one. We want to make sure it's just a little bit smaller. C. For D, I'm going to draw with the one line thing. So you can do it just kind of like this. And it looks like a foot kind of. So there you go. So that's the kind of difference between our B's and C's. You can kind of play around with that depending on how you want to write it. So some people might have that little indent there and some people might not, and that's totally fine. For E, I've actually kind of changed how I draw my E's recently. I do this and kind of make it look like a little worm that's turning, and then I give it an I, and I call that an E. I think that's a more fun way of doing it, so that's just the way I've been doing it recently. For F, we're going to go up, and then F has that little bar in the middle. So we're going to draw the bar in, and then we go up and around and come back down. There's our F, just like that. And then for G, it's kind of like E, but I want to make it more of a round thing. So I'm going to draw the round part, come down and loop, and I'm going to make it more defined. And that's going to distinguish my G from my E. See how it's a little bit more straight? I made sure that there's a line there at the bottom like that. That makes it look different than my E. I do that just to differentiate between the two, but once again, right, you can do it however you want. You are free to draw and color any way you see fit. After G, we have H. So we're going to draw this part here. We're going to make a little loop and come up. And then we've got our ending there. So there's our H. It kind of looks like a little igloo with a chimney. You can want to think about it that way. So there's our igloo H. For I, we've got just a regular old kind of stick with a dot over it. So that's I. J is the same way. We've got our little thing, except for J, it curves. So we're going to make sure we've got our curve in there. For K, it's going to look similar to the bigger one, except it's going to be further down. So instead of being in the middle coming up and going all the way up to the top and all the way to the bottom, it's going to look a little different. It's going to be pushed down a little bit on the drawing. For L, it's just a line. So we're going to make a long, big line here. For M, kind of like A, it's got this little lip here. So I'm going to make sure that lip's in there. And there's two bumps for M. There we go. So you've got that little lip in there. That's not necessary. You don't have to have it, but it's something I like to do. And then for N, it's the same way, except it's just one. After N, we're going to do O, which is exactly the same as bigger O, just a little bit littler. For P, I'm going to do it the way I did D. It kind of looks like the big one. I didn't do that one great. Let me try that one more time. There we go. That looks more like a lowercase p. So there we go. I tried doing it. I just did the B version upside down, and it looked a little bit more like the lowercase p I was going for. For Q, you're going to do P, but just in reverse, and there's a tail to it. Okay? So P always, for lowercase q, that little tail makes it look different. So I have that little tail on there. For R, we're going to do that, and we just have our little hunch. Then S. Now, for little t's, I draw them in a particular way because I used to be a math teacher. And when you get into older levels of math, t's look very different when they're lowercase than uppercase ones. So I draw it like that. I'm going to show you both ways so that you're okay with it. So for regular old t's, maybe the way you're more used to, we're going to do that. And then it's just a straight line like that. Okay. However, I do my t's a little differently. I still do the top part mostly the same, but I have a little bit of a bend on mine. And that's because in higher level math, t's look like this because they want to make sure it looks different than a plus sign. So they make it look a little bit different. So I always draw them like this. You're free to do however you want, of course, though. Remember, because sketching and drawing is a personal exercise. You can make it look however you want. So after that, we're all the way to T. So now we're at U. So we're going to do that. Sometimes U's have these little tails. You can add that in if you want. You don't have to, though. V, we're just going to make a little version of the same thing we did before. For W, W's, when they're little, are more loopy. So I do it a little bit more loopy for little W's so that we know it's a little one. For X, it's the same thing as before. Make our lines, connect them, kind of like a dot to dot. For Y, Y's look a little bit different now. It's more of a loop, and then it kind of comes down like this. So it's more of like a small hill down the bottom, and it's more of a U cup instead of the more jagged one I did before. And then for Z, it's just a little one, a little version of what we did before. And there we go. We've got all of our lowercase letters all sketched out. We'll do the lining for all of them, and then after that, we'll color one in. And then we'll be done with this episode of Doodles and Drawings. I hope you've really enjoyed watching these because you've been learning all sorts of cool things about drawing. And that you're getting something out of this. And if you're not, that's okay. What I'd like you to do is comment on the video if you can, and tell me what you want to learn to draw. I would love to make sure that I can do the things that you want to learn on this show. So if there's something that you really want to learn how to do, or something you want to learn how to draw, then I would be happy to make sure that happens for you. So whatever that is, go ahead and drop a comment. Let me know what you want to learn to draw, and I'll make sure I learn how so that I can teach you how to do that. As we see here, we're doing all of our tracing. Whoop. So we've got our lining done. Oh, that was our mess up P. We'll cross that one out. Whoop. See, that time I didn't give myself enough space, so my thing's gonna look a little weird. There, that one's a little bit better. It's always important when you do bubble letters to give yourself enough space so that when you do sketch over it with your marker or your Sharpie, you have enough space that the letter's still there. As you can see, I'm cutting it a little bit close on our letters like S and Q and P here. It doesn't look as nice because I didn't use enough space. So it's important to make sure you have enough space to fully recognize the letter when you're doing your aligning afterwards. All right, we're almost done. And there we have it. Those are all of our lowercase letters. And we'll just color one of them in real quick just so we can get some coloring in. We don't want to miss out on the coloring part of our show here. So we'll do K. I'll do each of my letters here, each of my little legs a different color. And then we'll finish off with pink for this part here. Thank you guys again so much for coming and watching Doodles and Drawings. And I can't wait for the next episode where I'm going to be drawing a brand new character for you guys. So I hope you're excited, and we'll see you next time for more Doodles and Drawings. Adios.